Hello.
Hello.
I'm Dr. Ashi, and I'm here with Dr. BJ Rudd. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited. So I'm Black identified, queer identified, I'm a gay man. And in my own search for a therapist, I felt like I was looking for a unicorn. I wanted a
Yeah.
Black therapist. I wanted a queer identified
Mm,
therapist, and I didn't get that.
mm,
Um, and I think that's what really motivated me, one, to get back in school and like become a therapist,
mm,
but also motivated me to work with Black and brown queer identified folks who are looking for that.
mhm,
And what I've noticed in that is that I assumed that for a lot of my clients, it would be their first time in therapy.
mm,
As a Black man, I don't hear a lot about my community. At least I think there's been more of a movement since the pandemic, but before
mm,
that, there was not a lot of talk about, Black folks in therapy.
mhm,
Um, you would hear only for like very severe mental health issues, really. And that was like
mm,
hospitalization. That wasn't like, I have a
mm,
therapist that I'm seeing.
mhm,
And so what I've seen for a lot of clients that have like come to me, it hasn't been their first time, but it's been their first time with a Black therapist.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of these clients have named like the difference in like how it just feels in the room.
Mm,
That, oh, I feel like, you don't understand everything just because we're both Black, but I have to explain less, which allows
mm,
me to feel like I can speak authentically in this space. You don't question my experience, which makes me feel more validated in like what's happened.
mm,
And so I see a lot of what I feel like are walls coming down with Black and brown queer identified clients
mm,
simply because it's a different experience with having a clinician of color
mm.
to work with and to get to know and to build that relationship with.
When you're working with Black people specifically, what are some of the similarities and some of the differences that you see?
Yeah. Um, I think some of the most common sameness that I've kind of seen is
Mm,
that like understanding language and how it's like used. I think even my own experience of I've had a white therapist before,
mhm,
having to explain like colloquialisms and
mm,
having to clarify that, oh, that's slang and like this is actually what I mean, like really pulled me out of like the processing aspect of
mm,
therapy. And so I think I've noticed with a lot of clients that like or Black clients that they don't they kind of realize how they've taken for granted like, oh yeah, like I don't have to explain that, like you get it.
mm,
And I
mm,
even hear like, do you know what that means? And I'm like, yeah, I know what it means. And even some of the language used,
mm,
they'll like apologize, and I'm like, don't apologize, like, I can handle it, like I'm a big boy, like this is your space,
mm, mm,
just talk freely.
mm,
I've seen that just allow clients to open up a lot more and to engage in more vulnerability
mm,
simply because they know that like I can explain this thing in my life in the way that's natural to me
mm,
and not have someone telling me, oh no, it's actually this thing, or say it like this, or like, oh, we
mm.
actually don't use those terms. So I think that safety is an aspect that I've seen a lot from clients in this work. Um, Other similarities, like I just see I've had so many clients where they didn't know they were getting a Black therapist and they were Black identified.
Mm.
Um, in other practices that I worked in. And I've seen so many exhale and they're like, oh, okay, I'm happy you're Black. And just like seeing the excitement on their face, like, I'm just happy you're Black. I think there's that safety in like saying this, like, hey, I see that we share the same skin color, or I see you're at least a clinician of color. So automatically feel some sense of like safety with you because you're more likely to understand my experiences that I'm going to share with you today too.
Yeah, so even if a client is coming for, or two clients are coming for very different reasons, like one might be going through a divorce, and then the other one
Yep.
might have issues with anxiety and panic attacks or something,
Hmm.
just when I guess when they walk into the office or when the Zoom call comes on and they
Yeah.
see that you're black, there's almost like this sense of relief, like, oh, like at least I know that we can understand one another and
Yeah.
I feel safe talking to you before we
Hmm.
get into my individual concerns.
Yeah. And I think there's also that like I don't have to perform. Like
Mm,
Um, I myself can speak to like when I had a white therapist and how I felt
mm,
like I could say I'm going through it, but I can't say I'm going through it too much because I don't know if they're going to understand like what I mean by this
mm,
phrasing or by this way that I'm describing it. There's
mm,
automatically that mistrust that I have because like
mm,
Black and brown folks have not necessarily had a historical safety
mm,
within the mental health field or the health field in general.
mm,
And so I think that's a component too. It's like, okay, at least I have someone in front of me who's more likely to understand my experience.
mm,
And I feel safer because of that. That
mm,
I can just show up in a less performative way,
mm.
and just be my most authentic self. Yeah.
Can I ask what your experiences have been working with white therapists?
Short-lived. Short-lived for those reasons where
Mm,
I think I love self-awareness, but sometimes it annoys me in the sense
mm,
where I'm like, okay, I can't find the therapist I want. Let's take the therapist that's available. I at least like their bio. And then I think the longest I have worked with a non-Black therapist has been 3 months, maybe.
oh, that's pretty long.
Uh,
Medium.
sure. I don't know. I guess I would expect more.
Mm,
I will also name that like this was in like a college capacity too. So, it's
mm,
different. It's a university counseling center. So there was like less consistency needed on my part.
mhm,
But I noticed that like I didn't lie to my therapist, but I didn't tell my therapist everything. And I
mm,
felt like everything I would say, even though they were reframing or reflecting it back to me and validating it,
mm,
it still to me felt like, yeah, but you still don't get it. And the reason I
mm,
couldn't get it is because of my own barrier of like, I can't say it in the way that feels most natural to me.
mm,
And or this belief that I couldn't say it in that way. This
mm,
assumption that they're not gonna get me. This
mm,
isn't mental, therapy is not a space that has been created for Black people because like what Black
mm,
people in your family do you see in therapy? And
mm,
so I think that preconceived notion also impacted my ability to work with white identified therapists in that way.
mm, mm,
Um, but yeah, it's still something that's very natural and it's something I've had Black and brown clients tell me their experiences with white identified clinicians. Also, a lot of positive experiences
mm,
with white identified clinicians as well,
mm,
and some negative experiences with Black and brown ones. So,
mm.
again, going back to the monolithic part, like
Yeah.
yes, there's this assumed like you get it. But at the same time, there is also this like, hey, I'm not gonna get everything, but I'm gonna be real with you and like let you
Mm,
know, like, I'm unfamiliar with that term. Like, what exactly did you mean here? In a way that is
mm,
not judgmental, in a way that's not presumptuous, but in a way that's just like, I want you to bring me into your experience. I just want to understand this better.
mm.
And I think that is helpful as well.
Yeah. I want to ask about working with, because you said you work with lots of queer clients. Do you
Mhm.
have experience working with heterosexual black men?
I do. Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that? Because my guess is that's like the most taboo situation is for like a straight black man to go to therapy.
Yeah. I think my own bias towards like cisgender straight Black men
Hmm.
um really got in my own way when I was working with when I have worked with like straight Black men in therapy.
Oh
I
wow.
think when I was a younger clinician, it was like you read my bio, like you see, like I'm queer as hell, like,
Mm-hmm.
like why me? Like, or then like these anxious thoughts around like, oh my gosh, maybe they didn't read it and maybe they don't know and they think that they're getting a straight
Mm,
black man as a clinician. And
mm,
so those were a lot of my initial challenges, even before I had the client in the room.
mm,
Um, but one of the most amazing things, experiences of, I think, working with straight black men was that they kept coming back.
mm,
And I'm just like, I remember my supervisor at the time, I'm asking, like, they keep coming back. I don't know how I'm helping them. I don't know like what we're doing, but they
mm,
keep coming back and they're excited. And I
mm,
still feel like I'm not doing anything. I think I'm just being curious and asking questions. And my supervisor at that time had said something along the lines of like, what if your queer identity is showing straight black men the expansiveness of masculinity. And you are showing them other potential ways, other opportunities to show up
mm,
as like a black man when society says this is a black man, this is how he acts, this is what he does, this is what he should do. Not just society, like our own communities say,
mm,
like these are expectations of black men. And she was really able to like help me recognize that like me and my queer identity and showing up in a lot of ways that like I don't deem masculine or feminine, I deem as just like me.
mm,
But she really challenged me to say like, hey, like maybe you're showing them other ways that they can show up,
mm,
and the fact that it's coming from another black man gives them permission to see it
mm,
as an
mm,
opportunity, as something that they can explore. And I noticed that a lot. I had some black male clients, some straight black male clients.
mm.
I had one who was so excited after therapy. He like sent an email saying like, "Thanks for the best first session ever," and it caught me off guard because I'm like, I think one of the main things I said was like, "That doesn't sound like anger. That sounds like sadness."
Mm, mm,
Um, and I thought that was something just reflecting that that's what that sounds like. He didn't have a big reaction to it. But
mm,
like outside of that space, I'm thinking of the expansiveness of like his emotions now. Like
mm,
this doesn't just have to be anger. This can also be sadness. This can be let down. And I had
mm,
another black man who's told me that.
mm,
So it can be true for me too.
mm. Yeah, so it seems like your experiences with straight black men, it sounds like created anxiety for you that of just working with straight black men.
Yeah.
And then
Mhm.
you were almost surprised that you could have a relationship with a straight black man that was healing for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like that sums it up so well because I feel like in my social circles, I have less straight black men
Mm,
that has shown up like throughout my life. And my family, of course, yes. But it's mainly been like if it's mainly been straight black women or queer black women or queer black men that
mm,
I tend to have in my social circle. And I think that too created some anxiety where it's like fear of being found out, fear of, their assumptions that they put onto me being made wrong and them being upset by it. And I, to this day, have not had any of those issues. I
mm,
still have those moments where I'm like, do they know I'm queer? Like, how are they going to feel about that? But I'm like, also, like, they're here for therapy.
mm,
They're gonna get BJ in my entirety, in my most authentic self as a clinician.
mm,
And so if that's an issue, that's something we can talk about. That can maybe it's a challenge for them. I'd love for them to stay in therapy so that we can talk about how that's challenging
mm,
instead of, sending them away or saying, I can't work with you and thinking that that might cause further issues when they encounter queer identified folks in the future too.
mm,
So yeah, I learned to see it as an opportunity rather than something to be fearful of. And if it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit, and I'm happy to help them find like someone else. But yeah, yeah, it's been challenging, but I like where I am and how I feel about it currently.
Yeah, I mean, that really, this just shows me how much I take for granted certain things because there's this layer here that is an anxiety for you that makes complete sense that I
Mhm.
wouldn't experience because, there are times where I wonder, what are my clients thinking because I'm a person of color, and it's like,
Mhm.
what do they think about me? What are their assumptions? And at the
Yeah.
same time, I'm just assuming if they're coming to work with me, they've agreed to it. They're not at least
Yeah.
overtly racist, right?
Hmm.
Because it's like here they are. But
Hmm.
for you, there's this underlying piece of your sexual orientation that you don't know how someone's going to respond to that, whether or
Yeah.
not they're black or
Hmm.
whatever they are.
Yeah.
Like this, it's something that's not obvious unless, you say it or they read somewhere that you've made that public.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think again that's my gravitation towards relational cultural. It's
Mm,
that I get to show up as my most authentic self.
mm,
And by doing that, I'm modeling that, like, even though I might have a seemingly straight person in front of me or someone who identifies that currently, like there
mm,
could be other aspects of their identity that they didn't feel like were safe to bring into the room as well.
mm,
Maybe they do recognize how they have racist thoughts come up, and like
mm,
I would hope that, hey, if you're choosing to work with me, then I'm creating this place where like you can now name those and know that I am not going to shut you out and shun you and shame you for this, but that I'm going to appreciate that you felt safe enough that you
mm,
took this like relational risk
mm,
to bring this up, and that we both contributed to the safety in this relationship, not just me.
mm,
We both contributed in it so that we can explore this for you and see how it shows up and see how
mm,
you can build self-awareness around it and hopefully remove some of the shame around it and normalize it.
mm,
um, and I've seen that as being just so helpful for me. I think at the same time as I'm able to accept my clients as they are in their most authentic selves, it really gives me permission, like right back to myself, to
mm,
show up as yourself. And
mm,
if it's an issue, like that can be worked through with a client. But if a client doesn't want that,
mm,
then you're only you, BJ. Like you can only
mm.
show up as yourself. So
Yeah.
don't go into to this perfectionistic like separation of yourself and then show up inauthentically, because then like what work are you doing? And it
Mm,
doesn't feel good? No, it doesn't feel good at all. So
mm.
yeah.
Do you have an example of a time where this came up in therapy with the client? Doesn't have to be a black straight client, but just where your own identity became a piece that you were discussing with the client in terms of how you related to each other.
There was one, he's a straight black male client
Mm,
who alluded to the ways that I interact in the world are different from his. And so it was at the same time that I was seeing that one where I'm like, it sounds like you're not just angry, it sounds like sadness.
mhm,
That was just an era of straight black men in therapy for me. And he didn't say it in this like judgmental way. He was just like, I can't say that. My family doesn't expect that of me. Like they know me as a straight
mm,
black man. And
mm,
so like there are these rules for black men in the family.
mm,
It's that you don't talk about feelings or emotions. And I
mm.
might say that that's men in general, but
Yeah.
I know within like black male culture too, there's like this strong black man schema,
Mhm,
where it is like you can't let that get to you. Like you have to just keep pushing forward. There's only so many emotions that you can show, and also the responsibility that you have to the black women in your family, being an example, being a protector, all of these kind of cultural pieces that don't make me suggesting like, what if you told them that you couldn't fulfill that role? Like that to them would be like earth shattering. Like I I can't say that I don't want to be the man of the family. Like
mm,
that would one, like remove my own, feelings of my own masculinity within this. And this
mm,
would take it into question of like what value do I even give to my family?
mhm,
And so there were moments like that that I felt kind of throughout our relationship where like what I would suggest immediately had this kind of wall almost come up and like, that may be cool for you, but like I
mm,
can't do that. To where because of our relationship, I was able to say, like, why? Well,
mm,
if you didn't have to worry about that, like, how would you want to show up? What
mm,
would you want to do? And even if they go back into fulfilling that role, they had this opportunity in this space to be a little curious about, in an ideal world, this is what I would love to do. And how many times are they being asked that?
mm,
How many times do they have another black person, another black man in front of them asking, like, hey, what would you do in a perfect world if
mm,
you didn't have this responsibility? What would you pursue? What sorts of relationship would you want to have with people? And so that too has really led me to being less worried now around getting like straight black men in
Mm,
therapy. Because I do love the idea of like the expansiveness of masculinity and
mm,
black masculinity and how it shows up. And I like the idea of giving other black men permission of like,
mm,
hey, the one way that you've been doesn't isn't the only way. And
mm,
I'm here to model that there is another way. I will say I'm a black man to the day that I die.
mhm,
And it may look completely different from what my family wants or what, you know, within black culture, what you would
mm,
assume. But that does not take away from me feeling like I'm a black man.
mm.
And I want that for my clients too.
Yeah, and I could see how in that situation where this client is saying, I just can't do that because of what it is to be a black man in my family or in my community,
Yeah.
you kind of questioning that or asking questions and providing
Yeah.
alternatives, maybe you're the only one who can do that because you're black. Because if a
Yeah.
white therapist was doing it, then maybe the instinct would be to be like, no, that's
Yeah.
just like what white people do. But as black men, we
Hmm.
don't do that. You're actually
Yeah.
just from your identity alone, you make it legitimate.
Yeah. And I think that's what black therapists do within this industry as well.
Hmm.
It's like, okay, I haven't seen people go to therapy, so I'm going to do this search in secret. I'm not going to tell anyone. I'm not going to use my connections, my resources. I'm not going to ask anyone
Hmm.
about their journey. I'm just going to start looking, assuming that I'm likely only going to see white clinicians who are available.
Hmm.
And then as you look, you see like black and brown people there, and you're like, oh, like we do this? Like
Hmm.
I could have a black or brown therapist? Like what is this concept? And I
Hmm.
think a lot of folks, I've had so many clients who just get excited when it's like, I do have availability.
Hmm.
Yes, like that does work for me. Yes, we do accept your insurance when those barriers are removed and it's like closer to like, oh my gosh, I as a black person am going to have a black therapist and I'm excited about it. Like, what is that going to
Hmm.
look like?
Hmm.
I think that just goes back to like why I got back in this field.
Hmm.
It feels so good to be that black therapist to the people seeking it,
Hmm.
and being able to again like model the expansiveness of like black identity, black masculinity, black
Hmm.
queerness, to folks too.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's just opening up the world in a way that wasn't possible when it was just, white people doing therapy with white people.
Yeah.
Now access in new ideas and new ways of being a person, whether you're
Mhm.
black or whatever your identity is. Like from my perspective, most South Asian people don't go to therapy. Like,
Mhm.
they just don't. And I have a client who is South Asian, and we've been doing couples therapy for over a year now.
Mhm.
And so much good has come from it and so much progress in
Yeah.
his relationship. But he can't tell his family he's in therapy because it's so stigmatized. And
Yeah.
it's kind of ironic because the things we talk about, the ideas that we discuss, and like the healing that takes place, he's a South Asian guy, I'm a South Asian guy.
Mhm.
And so, but there's still this barrier of I kind of have to be secretive about this.
Yeah.
Um, have you seen that at all? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Absolutely. I think that's one of the biggest challenges in doing this work. Um, I feel like again, relational cultural is like reminding people like, hey, you can have this, what feels good here in a therapeutic relationship, you can have that in your relationships outside of here. And
Mm,
then they look at those relationships outside of here and they're like,
hmm.
yeah, this is good and all, but like, I don't think I can ask for that. I don't think I can expect that.
Mm,
And I hear that like so commonly, like clients who love RCT because they've been
hmm.
exposed to it, like the work
Hmm.
that we're doing, but then feel like, yeah, the piece that says that like I can go and create these connections outside of here, I that seems like a long ways out.
Hmm.
Um, but I think RCT just at least allows for that type of like vulnerability, that risk taking. Like, hey, but have you ever asked those people?
Hmm.
Have you ever like maybe you can't directly say it, have you hinted at like what you would hope that relationship would be?
Mm,
And seeing that responds. But I think there's also some acceptance that like I may not be able to have this sort of connection in maybe my family,
Hmm.
maybe in my community, but how can I at least attempt to see if I can recreate this in those connections? And if
Hmm.
not, maybe there needs to be some acceptance that I have to cope with around those relationships too.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think even attempting has been so beneficial for so many people I've worked with. I know for myself too, because there've been a lot of relationships that I've said it's not going to work. Like they are not going to respond to me saying this is what I need in the relationship,
Hmm.
and they have, and that's felt so good and
Hmm.
affirming, and allowed me to go out and try with other people that I maybe didn't have hope with.
This was really interesting. I really appreciate that you
Yeah,
did this.
yeah. Thank you for having me, and I love talking about RCT. So any combos you want to have about it outside of this, always happy to do so.